Hello everyone, today I'll be presenting the ultimate minion guide for this season of Hearthstone Battlegrounds. A lot of the time you guys ask me what is trash and what isn't because you know how I always say don't buy trash. Well, how do you know what is trash? Well, this resource is going to be the perfect resource for you. Let's dive right in. Before we get into the analysis of every single card, and trust me, the analysis will be somewhat brief, but pretty informative as well. I want to make sure you guys are clear of what I'm evaluating on. So there's three types of minions. There's like the synergistic minions, which rely on certain combos to be good. And the prime example of this is Trigger the Lasher, which is really strong if you have multiple beasts, but obviously you need the beast for it to be strong. So they're not good on their own, but they require synergy to be good. And then there's standalone good units like minions you would just buy without any synergy, such as maybe Crackling Cyclone. And then finally there's cards that are pretty much always bad, such as Blazing Skyfin. So I'll be sure to tell you guys which I'll be sure to tell you guys all and I'll be sure to tell you guys the categories that all of these fall into. And of course, if a card is synergistic, I'll also explain to you under what type of circumstances you want to buy these. Let's get started with the 1-drops. So the Divine Shield 1-drops I think are pretty strong in the meta right now. If you have a way to buff them, for example, if you're Mukla or Daryl or something, any way you can buff them, they become very good. Backstage is just always a standalone good unit, I think. And Deck Swabby, I pretty much always buy on turn 1. It allows you to go 3-on-3, whereas most of the other 1-drops don't allow you to go 3-on-3 without selling your minion. Deep Sea Angler, I would consider a pretty average 1-drop, but I would buy somewhat. Glim Guardian, according to his stats, is actually the worst 1-drop right now, so try not to buy Glim Guardian. Bonehead is also a pretty good standalone 1-drop. Mana Saber, it's a decent 1-drop, probably worse than Angler and Bonehead, but it enables Hummingbird. Mini Myrmidon is the second worst 1-drop, so try not to buy that either. This is just based on the stats, can't really explain why, but I trust the stats on this. Seems pretty reasonable. Misfit Dragonling is a very good 1-drop. It's basically a Reef Ripper on Tavern 1. You can keep it around and it'll be pretty good tempo. Molten Rock, it's an okay 1-drop, same tier as Angler and Bonehead. Picky Eater, you buy if your shop is big and you skip if it's not. Geomancer, pretty average 1-drop. Anomaly, pretty average 1-drop. Risen Rider, also an average 1-drop. I mean, these 1-drops, there's not much about them to say. You're kind of forced to buy them sometimes. And past turn 2, you pretty much never buy them ever again. Rockwool Hunter, just never buy this card. It's the third worst 1-drop, I think. Scalawag is average. Sunbake and Relaxer, I like to buy Sunbake and Relaxer because similar to Deck Swabby, it allows you to go 3-on-3 easily. Psalm Striker, I pretty much never buy. Wrathweaver, I almost never buy. Trusty Pup is pretty average. Hope you get a feel for the 1-drops, but the 1-drops aren't too important. Let's get into a 2-drops where differentiating whether a card is trash or not becomes a lot more important because you're faced with your first real decision of whether to buy trash or whether to love. First off, we have Blazing Skyfin. I think you should only buy this card if you plan on buying a Battlecry with it. This is most commonly on a hero such as Bran, but if you're not Bran, it's unreliable as a standalone unit and a synergistic unit. Coldlight Seer, I honestly can't remember the last time I actually bought this card. Yeah, don't buy this card. Cracking Cyclone is a great standalone unit, but that's pretty much all it is. It doesn't provide any synergy, any enablers. Sharpright is okay standalone, but really good synergistic minion. You want to buy Defiant Shipwright with cards such as Ripsnarl Captain because it combos really well with the attack scaling. You want to buy it with cards such as maybe Mini Myrmidon that gives you attack every single turn. Maybe if you're Illidan, if you're Mukla, just like a very synergistic minion. But if you have no synergy, it's like kind of whatever. Eternal Night is a card that I would buy turn 3 the latest. If you have a pair of them, you can maybe buy a pair of them turn 4, but you want to start scaling it from turn 3, and then it's a 6-3 on turn 5, which is pretty decent for a 2-drop. Fire Dancer, a card that I don't buy too often. It's pretty average standalone. It's pretty average synergistic. It could be good synergy with like the Silver Goose, but that's about it. Freedealing Gambler is an excellent standalone card. Hummingbird is a pretty good synergistic unit, unit, but a really bad standalone unit, so only buy it if you have synergy. If you have Mana Saver, it becomes good, and Silver Goose. Impulsive Trickster is a decent standalone unit, but nothing too special, and that's pretty much all it is. Irate Rooster is a really good standalone unit and a pretty good synergistic unit. So Irate Rooster is a really good card. It's good tempo because it allows you to give 4 attack to maybe a unit with a lot of HP, such as Lava Lurker, and makes it a lot stronger. Like the 5-4 stat line is a lot better than the 2-5 stat line. It also is good with synergies because there's a lot of self-damage cards in the game right now. Lava Lurker is pretty much only a synergistic unit. It's trash on its own, so only buy it with like Reef River or Deep Sea Angler or something. Lullabot, I would buy like turn 3 at the latest standalone. Otherwise, just buy as a magnetic for later utility drone setup or something. Mind Muck is a purely synergistic minion. You should only buy it if you have a demon. If you don't have a demon, it's trash. Nerubian Deathstormer is a very good synergistic minion. It's trash on its own. Only buy it if you have undeads. Losing Gladiator, pretty mediocre standalone unit, pretty mediocre synergistic minion. I would probably trash most of the time. I know it's a 4-4, which is like decent, but it's also a neutral, so it doesn't allow you to go into any direction. So it's trash most of the time, but it's good utility if you need taunts later on, but you generally don't need taunts early on. Party Elemental, synergistic only. Pretty terrible standalone, so only buy it if you have like Molten Rock or something. Patient Scout. Patient Scout's an interesting one because it's great standalone, because scaling a scout on turn 3 is a very powerful move recently. It's also economy, which means that turn 3 you sometimes buy it and then immediately sell it because you need the gold. Prophet of the Boar, purely synergistic. I pretty much only buy this card if either I'm already have the Prickly Piper on Tavern 3 or something, or I have Tough Tusk in the same shop. Otherwise, don't really buy this card. Reef River is great standalone and pretty decent synergistic. It's very commonly used with Lava Lurker, and even without Lava Lurker, I would buy this pretty often because it allows you to buff a high utility unit of your choice. For example, you can buff a Silver Goose and get a lot stronger. Rip Snarl Captain, pretty good standalone and really good synergy, so okay if you have to buy it on its own, but if you pair it with Scalawag or Defiant Shipwright, it becomes excellent. Scarlet Skull, decentish standalone, but really good paired with literally any undead. Like probably the best tempo 2-drop with paired with any undead. Elemental is econ, and the econ cards, they're pretty self-explanatory. If you need the gold, they're very good. And a lot of time you do need the gold. Silver Goose, very good standalone. Pretty toxic if you can scale it actually. Snail's a very good synergistic card. It's terrible standalone obviously, but if you have a spellcraft or a consistent way to generate spells such as Mukla Hero Power or something, it's a premium 2-drop. Soul Rinder, I'm pretty sure it's always trash. Like the only way it's not trash is if you have Wrathweaver Opener, and if you have Wrathweaver Opener, you bought trash because Wrathweaver sucks. So Tad is econ. Thousand Paper Drake is interesting. It's like okay-ish standalone. It's a 3-5 that doesn't really do anything. Not the best synergy. Like if you get Terragosa with it, it's like whatever. Yeah, this card is like pretty average standalone and pretty average synergistic wise. Like it doesn't really let you go dragons. Tough Tusk, good if you have a consistent way to generate gems like Prophet of the Boar, and pretty mediocre standalone. Very Hungry Winter Finner. It's very good if you find it turn 3 and you have a way to hold another minion. If you can't do both of those, then it's trash, I think. So you need to buy it exactly on turn 3 and be able to hold a minion for it to be good. Whelp Smuggler, it's a purely synergistic minion. If you're like Mukla or something and you have another dragon, it becomes very good. But on its own is obviously trash. Zodiac Spallion module is pretty much always trash. Taunt module is pretty much always trash. Reborn module is very good tempo. So Reborn module is a very good standalone unit. None of the Zillax modules really have any synergistic value this early in the game. Defense module, the Divine Shield is actually the best 2-drop in the game because it's just so strong tempo wise. Like a 3-4 Divine Shield on 2 is illegal. 3-4 Stealth module is trash on its own. Windfree module is also trash on its own. And that's it for the 2-drop. I hope that wasn't too long. Whatever. So starting from the Tavern 3 units, it's going to be very important to discuss the window of these cards. For instance, a card such as Bristling Buffoon might be very good turn 4 but very terrible turn 7. So I'll be sure to discuss the window of these cards with you guys. Starting with Akoratron. Akoratron is premium turn 4, and probably the latest you can buy it is turn 6. Pretty mediocre turn 6, so I think the window of a Kortron is turn 4 to turn 5. Bristling Buffoon, it's really good turn 4. It's okay turn 5. I'd pretty much never buy it turn 6 onwards unless you're for sure playing Cold Wars. Deep Blue, I think the window is turn 4 to turn 5. Your first Deep Blue on turn 6 is already too late to pick up. And this is generally, there's like edge cases, but I think you can't really go wrong with my general statements. Deflectobot's interesting because Mex is so strong right now, so you can even buy it as late as turn 7 if you have the correct setup for it, like if you have the Mecha Horse already. Generally speaking, you can't go wrong with just buying this on Tavern 3 unit, like there's no window for it. Diremuck, the window for it is usually turn 4, turn 5, unless you're running a Scarafin setup, which is pretty rare. Turn 6, you probably don't want to buy this anymore. Disguised Grave Robber is a utility card. You just buy it when you're playing Undead, so there's not really a window. Electric Synthesizer, also just a buff. You only buy it if you're playing dragons, but you only buy it if you need to stabilize. For instance, if you have like 6 dragons on your board, because if you have 6 dragons on your board and your board is really good, buying this card is a bit of a waste of money and you should just push your advantage. But that's just a general concept. Faceless Disciple, the window for this is like turn 4, turn 5, maybe turn 6 if you need to stabilize. It's an okay standalone unit. False Implicator, the window for it is turn 4, turn 5, unless you already have like the Fellblade stuff set up, and then you can buy it like turn 6, turn 7. But as a standalone unit, the window is turn 4, turn 5. Fiery Pulva is not that good of a unit in the current meta. Like as a 2-1, you just lose way too much HP. But if you were to designate a window for it, it'd be like turn 5. You're never buying this turn 6. You're never buying this turn 4 because you're gonna take too much damage. Yeah, it's just like turn 5 if it's your best minion. Gunpowder Courier, this card is terrible standalone, and the only reason you would buy this is if you have Defiant Shipwright as a synergistic combo. Other than that, you're pretty much never buying this. Handless Forsaken, you pretty much only buy this if you have synergy already. Otherwise, it's just too weak of a card, like if you have attack scaling already. Fateful Hag is a pretty good standalone unit, and if you have a reason to give a minion reborn, it's even better. For example, if you're giving a card such as a Nubrak reborn, it's even better. Heatless Hoarder, I'm pretty sure you never buy this unless you want to like use a spellcraft on it and gain some permanent stats, but as a standalone unit, it's pretty terrible. Living Azure is an interesting one, pretty debated even among HMR players. I think the window for it is turn 4, turn 5. Turn 6, your first Azurite's way too late. I'm not that great at using this card, so maybe you can pull it off turn 6. But in my opinion, turn 4, turn 5 is the window. Maltrazar, 2 refreshes, each turn costs health instead of gold. This one's an interesting one to evaluate because this card's actually often picked at HMR even without Soul Rinder. Like Soul Rinder isn't very important for this card to be good because 1 HP for 1 gold is already pretty good. And the window for this card is like turn 4, turn 5. This card is pretty bad, honestly. Like you only buy this card if you're lacking gem generation and you have like Hyper Jazzer set up already. Other than that, you pretty much never buy this. Monstrous Macaw, good with synergy. It's pretty bad standalone, pretty self-explanatory. Moonbacon Jazzer, only buy this if you have gem generation. It's only good with synergy, pretty bad standalone. Murgle MK, purely synergistic. If you have a lot of summons, you want to buy this, maybe from turn 5 to 7. If you don't have a lot of summons, you pretty much always want to skip this. Ferrix is a really good card right now. Sometimes you buy Ferrix even as late as turn 8 just because you have a way to scale it, maybe using Charging Sarina or something. You can't really go wrong with Ferrix, but it's not good with every single board, so make sure if you're gonna pick it up later, just make sure you can scale it. If you can't scale it, it's like pretty whatever. Prickly Piper, pretty much never buy this as a standalone unit, only if you have synergy with gem generators. Rampager is a very good standalone unit actually. You usually buy it to stabilize, and the effect isn't that relevant unless you're playing exactly beasts, so it does enable beasts, which is a plus side because that comes broken. Replicating Menace, it's like a decent standalone option. 3-2 that summons 3 microbots. Pretty good tempo, decent synergistic with cards such as Deflectobot. Roaring Rallier, decent standalone. It's like a 5-6 that makes your dragons better. Decent with synergy and enables dragons. So Roaring Rallier is okay on like turn 4, turn 5, maybe turn 6. Scourfin, not the best card in the meta right now. The window for Scourfin is definitely turn 4, turn 5. You should probably never be buying Scourfin turn 6 onwards, at least your first Scourfin. Shell Whistler. Shell Whistler is a really good card right now because there's like a Shell Whistler comp going around right now. Standalone, you are pretty happy with buying. It also enables that clo. Shell Whistler is pretty good standalone. Still Lifted Burrower, I've never said that card in my life. Purely a synergistic card. You buy it if you have beast, you don't buy it if you don't. And the window for it is probably turn 6 at the latest. Slimy Fellblood, pretty good standalone turn 4, turn 5. Turn 6 onwards, unless you're playing exactly demons or elementals. Sprightly Scarab, purely a synergistic card. Buy it if you need Reborn Beast. If you don't need to, then skip it. Terragosa, also purely a synergistic card. Probably don't buy this standalone. Buy it if you have like Growing Rallier or Promo Drake or something. Gladiator is a fairly good standalone card actually. You're usually playing a couple of spells in the early game. The synergy is just an added bonus, but 3/3 Divine Shield that passively scales is a pretty good unit. So I kind of like Gladiator. Turn 6 at the latest I would buy to stabilize probably. Hooktail's a really good buy if you have reasons to buy timer spells or if you already have timer spells in your hand. It's also a comp on its own, surprisingly. Like if you just go Hooktail plus Deflectos or Ferrex or something, it's a very strong Roach comp. Standalone, it's not a very good purchase. So if you have good Divine Shields that you're willing to buff and you're going to play timer spells to stabilize, is a good pickup. But if you're just going to buy it standalone without planning on buffing your board, then it's not so good. The window's probably like turn 6, turn 7. Vengeful Slither basically provides no synergy, but it's a good standalone unit for like turn 4, turn 5. Wildfire Elemental, it's not that good as a standalone unit. Like it's okay as a standalone unit and it provides like no synergy, so I don't think Wildfire is a very good card. Buy it if you have to, I guess. Stabilizing on timer 4 is pretty common nowadays, so this one might be the most important. Starting off with, Module is a terrible standalone unit, and you pretty much only buy it if you have a big mech that you want to Divine Shield, otherwise you never buy it. A new Brack, only a synergistic card. It's enabled by previous tier undead such as Handless Forsaken or Harmless Bonehead, otherwise don't buy it standalone. Assistant Guard is purely a standalone card if you have taunts. It's just a pure stabilization card. It's very good stabilization, but doesn't provide any synergy really. Banner Boar is purely a synergistic card. It's okay standalone on like turn 6, turn 5, turn 6 you would buy it. Turn 7s onwards you only buy it if you have synergistic value. Base Skill is honestly a pretty bad card this meta. You pretty much never buy it as a standalone unit. You only buy it if you have the Bream counter already. I'll just cover Bream counter right now. You pretty much never buy Bream counter as a standalone unit. You only play Bream counter if you have a way to generate Murloc. So basically base skill, Bream counter, you never buy these on timer 4. You pretty much only generate them. Bazaar Dealer, most of the time just only buy it if you have synergy. So if you have like Soulwinder already, you can buy Bazaar Dealer and don't worry about it if you don't. Blade Collector, pretty terrible standalone. There's not that many situations where you would buy this on Tavern 4. You only buy this if you have a consistent way to scale it, and the most common way is Greymane currently. Crafty Aeronautsite, an insanely good standalone unit. Probably one of the best in terms of stabilizing you on turn 5, turn 6, turn 7. But other than that, provides like no synergistic value. Floating Watcher, only buy this with synergy, never buy this as a standalone unit. Gem Smuggler, pretty much the same thing. Only buy this if your gems are buffed, never buy it if they're not. Geomagus Rugug. I mean, you could buy this as a standalone unit on like turn 6, turn 5 because it's a 4/6 shield. It's not the worst, but that's all it will be if you don't have any Quobers. Like, it doesn't really make you want to go Quobers. Okay-ish standalone and pretty great synergistic wise. Goldshell Warden is purely a stabilization card. Only buy this if you have a lot of beasts and you need to be strong because your board sucks. Otherwise, if you're ahead, just push your advantage and roll for the great cards. For Gurgle, same deal. Stabilization card mostly. Only buy this if you need to improve your Murloc board. Otherwise, just push your advantage. Landlubber. Landlubber is a pretty good standalone unit because the extra spell every refresh actually helps and also enables stuff such as Nala, but most of the time it's a standalone unit and there's like some niche cases where you synergize it with Azurite. Yeah, most of the time I buy it as a 5/7 standalone unit, not the worst. Long John Cooper has a window, so the window for Long John Cooper is like turn 5, turn 6. Turn 7 onwards, a 4/6 is probably just gonna get one shot, so it's not so good. So it's amazing turn 5, turn 6, and then turn 7 onwards, not so good. Lovesick Balladist, purely a synergistic unit. If you have a good pirate you want to buff, such as maybe Long John Copper, you should buy this. Otherwise, it's terrible standalone. Magmalock is a pretty good standalone unit actually on like turn 5, turn 6, turn 7. If you anticipate playing a lot of minions in the game, you can buy it to stabilize. It's also pretty good as an enabler to like APM comps. Mechanized Gift Horse, it's a good standalone unit, provides decent tempo. It's a really good synergistic unit for both mechs and beasts, so that's why Mecha Horse is very good right now. Mummifier, it's a purely synergistic card, never buy this without synergy. Nightbane Ignited is an insanely good standalone standalone unit, probably one of the best in the game, and also an insane synergistic unit. Like it single-handedly enables KT Nightbane and the other dragon comp, like the Poet Nightbane comp. Nightbane is pretty much a snap buy on like turn 5, turn 6, turn 7. Peggy Sturdy Bone, purely a synergistic unit, very terrible to buy standalone, but if you have like a long john already, it's insanely good. Persistent Poet, purely a synergistic unit, you only buy it if you have synergy with it, such as Misfit Dragonling or something like that, or Prize Promo Drake. Otherwise, just don't buy it. Prize Promo Drake, also a purely synergistic unit, you only buy it if you have dragons. Standalone is pretty trash. Recycling Wraith is an interesting one because Elementals is such a good comp right now, but also Recycling Wraith is a very bad stabilization unit. So basically it's a very bad standalone unit because you can't play Elementals from behind. But if you're ahead, like if your SWAT is insanely good, Recycling Wraith becomes one of the best cards you can find. Very insane enabler for APM comps, but as a standalone unit, it's really not that good. Reef Explorer, very good standalone unit if you need to just fill out your board. Like this, a very good unit you can find. Pretty good synergistic value because a lot of times you can force Chimera with Reef Explorer, and that's a very good stabilizing play. Rylak is purely a synergistic minion. You only buy this if you have a battle cry you want to proc, such as Slimy Fellblood or something. It's terrible standalone, don't buy this standalone. Straight Shot, okay-ish standalone, but provides 0 synergy, 0 enabling value, so try to not buy Sindoi Straight Shot. It's a good tech option though for the late game. Snarling Conductor, very good if you have consistent cheap spells to discard. For example, if you're generating coins with Long John Copper, Snarling Conductor is insanely good, or if you have a 1-cost spell you can buy every turn. It's okay standalone if you can get a spell, and it's great synergistic value if you can generate spells. Soft-Hearted Siren is a pretty bad card pretty much always. Like it's okay-ish turn 5 maybe, and then turn 6, turn 7 is falling off. Pretty decent to buy if you're playing Deep Blue comp exactly. Okay-ish synergy, terrible standalone. Tavern Tempest, purely a synergistic card, but if you're playing Elementals. Elise is an interesting one to evaluate. It's actually a very, very good card pretty much always, but it depends on your position. So if your position is very good, if your spot is very good, you're at 30 HP, your board is strong, you have passive scaling, you always buy this. But if your position is bad, then you shouldn't buy this, and you should look to buy some actual stabilizing cards similar to Recycling Wraithish. Trigger Lasher, a pretty terrible standalone. Obviously if you have no beast you can't buy this, but if you have like any beast, honestly, Rooster on turn 6 or turn 7, just buy Trigger Lasher because this card is so broken synergistic wise. If you have a lot of beasts, you can even buy it turn 8, turn 9. Turn 6, turn 7, you see this card, you can already decide to pivot beast. Turn 8, turn 9, if you're already playing beast, you buy this card. Blaster, purely a tech card, okay or standalone, but usually you don't buy it because it's neutral. Utility Drone, purely a synergistic card, only buy if you have magnetic generation. Wing Chimera, an amazing stabilizing card, amazing standalone card on like turn 6, turn 5. Turn 7 is pretty decent most of the time, and turn 8 onwards is too late. Zesty Shaker is purely a synergistic card. It's not that great standalone. Don't buy this card standalone. It doesn't enable anything. Okay, we're almost done. This is taking a bit longer than I thought, but hopefully it's worth it. Amber Guardian is very, very good if you have at least one dragon as a standalone unit. It's also insanely important if you're playing the dragon comp. It's good standalone and also great synergistic. Augmented Labor, you pretty much only buy this if you have a consistent way to proc Avenge 4, Avenge 8, and also the window for this card is like turn 8 and before. Like you want this as early as possible ideally. Bongo Bopper, this is a purely synergistic card, pretty much never buy this if you're not going Cool Wars. Bran is an interesting one. It's terrible standalone, but it's probably the best unit in the game in terms of synergy. Like every single comp needs it, so if you anticipate might needing Bran in your comp, you should buy it. And there are certain comps that don't need it. Like if you're playing an end of turn build, you probably won't need Bran. Like if you're playing Murky Murkai, if you're playing Tethys Pirates, Elementals, like a lot of builds need Bran. So if you can get away with it and you don't need the standalone tempo, you should buy it. Champion of Primus, purely synergistic, only buy it if you're playing Undead. And Undead aren't good enough to pivot into with a single Champion of the Primus, basically. Charging Sirena, purely synergistic, only buy it if you have Divine Shields, but if you have Divine Shields, it's amazing. Corrupted Myrmidon, I think is just always trash, to be honest. Like it's only good with Lord of Gains and no one plays that card. Thrasher, obviously amazing tech, okay in a Lord of Gains comp, otherwise that's all it is, just tech, terrible standalone. Draconic Death Scale, amazing synergy, insanely broken if you want to trigger Battlecry multiple times, but terrible standalone. Only buy this if you have a way to use its effect. Drakari, similar to Bran, could be amazing, could be terrible depending on what direction you're playing. Ensorcelled Fungus, pretty much only used for using Shellamental spells on it or something. You usually just don't buy this card. Pretty mediocre standalone, and I guess synergy in the form of it's good in the shop. Felbor. Felbor is purely synergistic. You only use Felbor if you know for a fact you're playing either Demons or Shell Whisper comp or Nala comp, and you have to be committed to those 3 comps. Flourishing Frostling, I mean, it's similar to Fungus to be honest. Like, it's very good in the shop, so you can use Shellamental on it. Other than that, it's not the greatest standalone unit. Dracosath, just a Battlecry. Buy it with Bran, buy it with Caligos, you know the drill. Glow Scale, mostly used as tech. Late game, if you need a Divine Shield for a single fight, you cycle it. Other than that, not the best standalone unit. 5-drops in general are not the best standalone units, so you usually don't go to 5 to stabilize. You usually stabilize on 4, but if you are stabilizing on 5, there's like a couple of cards that you would be happy to see, and Glow Scale is not one of them. Abomination, on the other hand, is like purely a standalone unit. It's very good if you have an Avenge setup, but it honestly provides like no synergy. You don't really build into it. You use it for tempo to go into an actual direction. It doesn't make you want to play Undead. It doesn't particularly synergize that well with Undead. It's just an Abomination. Urzel is always trash. I don't think I've played this card a single time. If you're playing Shop of Demon, how big your shop is, it's still bad, okay? You're not cycling demons. Iridescent Skyblazer is an insanely good synergistic card for Beast, so if you have a reason to play Beast, you should pick it up. Otherwise, it's trash. Leroy is purely tech. If you need an ending unit, it's just a great, probably the best tech in the game. Not a great standalone unit in the sense that it doesn't help you stabilize. It doesn't really go into any direction. Marine Matriarch has a window, and the window for Marine Matriarch to be good is, I would say, it's turn 7 and before. Turn 8 onwards is when it starts getting consistently one shot. So if you can get a Matriarch turn 7 before, I'd say go for it. Turn 8 and onwards, you would need a reason to generate spells. For example, Nala, you would buy it turn 8 and onwards. Speaking of Moon Eater is a great synergistic minion if you have lots of 1-drops or 3-drops already. Like if you have odd cards, great to stabilize. And also it's a comp on its own, so if you buy it, you have the option to play Moon Eater comp. I would say decent standalone to stabilize, and also decent synergy because it allows you to play the Moon Eater comp. Morose, purely synergistic. Don't buy this if you don't have Undead. Mirazon is just a Battlecry. Octosari, insanely good standalone unit, and also pretty good synergy with Beasts. So Octosari is a very good card right now. 8-8 that summons an 8-8 is very good type. Belcher, just tech, similar to Leroy. Profit Lookout's a Battlecry, so buy it if you want Murlocs. But Rapscan Recruiter is a very, very, very good standalone unit, similar to Octosari, but it doesn't have the same synergy value as Octosari. Like, it only builds into Eliza comp, which isn't as good as Beast right now. If you want raw power on your board because you need to stabilize, it's definitely not trash. Record Smuggler, pretty good standalone value to play. Maybe turn 8 and before. Mostly buy it if you have pirates on your board, like most of the time. So the window for Record Smuggler is like turn 8 and before, and you should pretty much only buy it if you have 2 pirates already on your board that you're not going to sell. But it is a pretty good standalone unit. Like, it does provide a lot of value on its own, even if you don't plan on going pirates. So standalone is pretty good. Roll for Performer is a very good Battlecry in the meta right now because there's so many expensive spells that you can discover. Scrapscraper is a pretty terrible unit right now. It's just too slow. Like, Scrapscraper's window is like turn 7 and before, and if you're playing mechs, like turn 8 and before maybe. Like, even if you're playing mechs, you roll into this card turn 9, it's too late. So Scrapscraper, great to triple into, but it definitely has a window. Shellamental, mostly a synergistic card. It could help you stabilize like as a standalone good unit, but as I said, you typically don't stabilize on 5. It provides most of its value from synergies with maybe Elementals, Flourishing Frostling, or Deep Blue Zesty. Spellbound Seafarer, I think the window for this card is like turn 8 and before, and you should only buy it if you have a reason to buy a lot of cards, like if you have a Recycling Wraith or a Bran already. If you don't have a reason to buy a lot of cards, it's just not a very good standalone unit. Like, you should buy it with synergy only. Spike Savior, synergistic card purely. Buy it if you are playing Beasts. Self-damage beast specifically. It's insanely core for self-damage beast, but if you're not playing self-damage beast, then don't bother, or most of the time don't bother. It could have niche cases with like other self-damage cards, but most of the time it's beast. Tichondrius, terrible standalone unit. Okay, synergistic unit if you're playing exactly demons, self-damage demons. Titus Rivendare, I mean, it's like Brandon Drakari. It could be good if you need it, if you're playing beast or something, but as a standalone unit, it's extremely terrible. Tartal and Blueshell, buy it if you lost. Very self-explanatory. Bramble Witch's Tech, Underhand Dealer. Honestly, if you never buy this card, you would probably be okay. Like, you would buy this sometimes if you're playing Pirates and you need to stabilize, but it's not a great card, so don't buy this often. Treant is insanely good standalone. It's probably the best standalone 5-drop. Its window is probably turn 8 and before. It doesn't really build into anything, but it's just insanely good standalone, especially if you triple into it. So yeah, turn 8 and before is insane. Yu Long, it's purely a synergistic card if you're playing dragons. Okay, almost done, guys. Eliza, synergistic, only pretty much only triple into it, I guess, if you have pirates on your board or if you have Rapscallion or something. It's okay standalone, it's okay, but only if it's your best option. KT pretty much never uses standalone, but it's very good with cards such as Nightbane or Mroz, so it's enabled by some cards. Bristlebach, enabled by gem scaling, obviously. Charlie, enabled by gem scaling. These are terrible standalone units. This is like the worst standalone unit, Chromurgler. Only play it with Murlocs. Cultist, again, a terrible standalone unit, but actually very good synergistic if you have even one big demon on your board. Like, you can just taunt it up and use it for tempo. Most of the time, it'll be a Chimera. That Stomper, you need synergy. You need minions that summon, such as Mana Saber or Mecha Horse. But if you do have it, it's very good synergy. Elemental Surprise, okay-ish standalone. Mainly you use it with elementals. Eternal Summoner, it's okay-ish standalone if it's your best tempo option. Velbat, pretty bad standalone. Most of the time you just use it if your shops are big and you have demons on your board. Pretty self-explanatory. Tethys, it's okay as a standalone card because it generates value, not because it's particularly good tempo. Like, if you just take this standalone, you have the option to go APM comps, and if you don't go APM comps, worst case, you just got some gold out of it. Tethys is pretty good. Viper, okay standalone, not the best synergy, but if you're already playing mechs and you get it somehow, then you can scale it and it's pretty good. Coiler, most of the time it's a standalone unit. It's not the best synergy. Its main synergy is with Dead Stomper. Outside of Dead Stomper, it's not the best unit. Like, you don't typically run it in a Goldrin comp. Speaking of Goldrin is a purely synergistic unit. Don't buy this standalone ever. If you buy this standalone with no beast, you're just forcing beasts for no reason. Even though Goldrin is pretty good right now. Greymane, I would say it's great synergy with Tethys or Recycling Wraith, and it's okay to standalone. Like, if you don't have Wraith or Tethys, you can use it for a bit of tempo sometimes. Pouring Saison, it's literally only a standalone unit. It provides like very little synergistic value. Caligos, honestly, this card, you can only buy this or triple into it if you have a brand already, and maybe Draconic as well. If you don't have brand, don't even think about going Caligos. So it's purely synergistic. It's terrible standalone. Even if you have a full board of dragons, don't get baited by a full board of dragons. Murky, purely synergistic, best with Bran and Murkai. Nala, honestly, if you have like a lot of different types on your board, pretty good to triple into this just to give you some stabilization. But if you don't have a lot of types that you want to scale, it's pretty bad. Poke is just purely a synergistic card in my opinion. Like, you should only pick this card if you plan on going Cold Wars. Beatboxer, also purely a synergistic card. Never pick this standalone. It's really bad standalone. And even with synergy, honestly, the magnetic Beatboxer comp is like way too inconsistent. Like, it's not very good. Beatboxer isn't in a good spot right now, really. But if you have the synergy, go for it. Like Scavenge for Parts, for instance. Rock, purely a synergistic card. Only pick it if you have Wraith or something. Silvaz, probably the best standalone, or second best standalone 6-drop. The best one is Whirlomatic. Tripling into this, generates consistent value. Has a little bit of synergistic value with Nala or Lord of Gains, but not as important as its standalone value. Like, it's such a good standalone unit. Sister Death Whisper, purely a synergistic unit. Don't buy this without Reborns. Lord of Gains, just never buy this card. It's trash. Untamable, purely a standalone standalone unit. It doesn't even work that well with mechs or beasts. It's just an annoying card, triple into it, and your opponent gets annoyed. World-O-Matic, probably the best standalone unit, similar to Savjz. You don't even have to go mechs, but you have the option of going mechs, and mechs are in a better spot than Nagas, so that's why World-O-Matic is in a better spot than Savjz. But World-O-Matic, consistent value standalone, and very good synergistic value with charging Sabrina. Murk-Eye, purely synergistic, only pick this if you want to trigger some battle cries. And finally, Zap is just tech, I think. I mean, it's okay standalone, but it's just tech. That was a lot longer than I thought. I'm sorry guys, but hope you guys enjoyed this video. For those of you that stuck to it, and I'm pretty impressed. I might do another one of these videos but for spells instead, so definitely let me know in the comments if you would like to see that. But anyway, thank you for watching. Bye.